Hello everyone and welcome back to Sleepless Campfire. Tonight, we travel into the forgotten backroads of America, places where light fades. And what remains are stories that refuse to die. Across these hills, rivers, and empty towns are accounts drawn from witness reports, police files, and archived broadcasts. Each one verified, recorded, and retold in their own words. The dispatch call represents the first official record of an encounter with the unknown. It is the moment when routine procedure meets the inexplicable, when professional composure fractures against something beyond training or explanation. In the archives of emergency services across the country, certain calls stand apart, not for their violence or chaos, but for their quiet warnings. The moments when those trained to respond to emergencies instead caution others away. These are 8 such calls. 8 moments when the uniformed guardians of our safety became the first to warn us away. When the standard protocols of assistance were replaced with something more primal, a warning. The transcripts you will hear are authentic. The names have been changed where necessary, but the events remain as they were recorded. Each call ends with the same chilling instruction, delivered by those who encountered something they could not explain. Now let us begin with our first story. It was late October of 2013 when Park Ranger Michael Davies made his first call to Shoshone National Forest Dispatch. The transmission, logged at 10:42 p.m., would become the first of 3 increasingly disturbing communications that night. Davies had patrolled the Wyoming wilderness for 11 years. His route that evening took him through the northeastern section of the park, an area known locally as the Whispering Woods for the unusual acoustics created by dense stands of lodgepole pine. The evening was unseasonably warm, with a light breeze carrying the scent of pine needles and damp earth. Davies had completed his routine checks of the campsites and was preparing to return to the ranger station when something caught his attention. The forest had gone silent. Not the normal quiet of nighttime in the wilderness, but an unnatural absence of sound. No crickets, no rustling of small animals in the undergrowth. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Davies pulled his vehicle to the side of the gravel road, cutting the engine to listen more carefully. That's when he heard a soft whispering sound that seemed to come from all directions at once. It wasn't the wind through the trees, which he knew well after years in the forest. This was different, rhythmic, almost like speech but in a language he couldn't identify. The radio crackled to life as Davies pressed the transmit button. "Dispatch, this is Ranger Davies, Patrol 7. I'm at mile marker 17 on the Northeast Access Road. I'm hearing something unusual out here. Sounds like whispering, but I can't pinpoint the source. Over." The dispatcher's response was immediate. "Ranger Davies, dispatch receiving. Can you describe the sound more clearly? Any indication of other visitors in the area? Over." Davies leaned out his driver's side window, straining to identify the source. The whispering seemed to be moving now, flowing through the trees like water. "Negative on visitors, dispatch. All campsites checked out earlier. It doesn't sound human. It's coming from multiple directions. The pattern is changing, getting closer." He paused, listening intently. There's something else now. A low humming sound underneath the whispering. Vibration, almost, like something large moving through the trees. But there's no breaking of branches, no footfalls. Over. The dispatcher's voice remained calm, professional. "Ranger Davies, are you in immediate danger? Do you require backup? Over." Davies didn't respond immediately. When his voice came through the radio again, it had changed. The professional detachment of a seasoned ranger was replaced by something else. "I don't know what's out here, dispatch. The whispering has stopped. The humming is getting louder. My vehicle is vibrating. Slightly. The lights are flickering." Another pause. "I'm looking at the tree line now. There's something moving. It's not an animal. It's too tall, too still." The radio went silent for 30 seconds. When Davies spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Dispatch, be advised. Whatever is out here, it knows I'm here. It stopped moving when I looked directly at it. It's just standing there, between the trees, watching. The dispatcher's voice maintained its professional tone, though with increased urgency. Ranger Davies, please confirm your location. We're sending units to your position. Can you retreat to your vehicle? Over. I'm in the vehicle, dispatch. Doors locked. The humming is louder now. Right outside. Davies's breathing could be heard over the radio. There's a face at the window. It's not human. The eyes are too large. No nose that I can see. Just eyes. And the mouth isn't moving, but I can hear it inside my head. Not through my ears. Inside. A sharp intake of breath. It's telling me things. About places I've never been. People I've never met. Things it shouldn't know. The dispatcher's response was immediate. Ranger Davies, backup is approximately 12 minutes out. Can you drive away? Over. I can't, Davies whispered. It's standing in front of the vehicle now, just looking at me. The other rangers need to know. Tell them not to come here. Whatever this is, it's not something we can handle. It's not something we should even try to understand. The radio went silent again, this time for nearly a minute. When Davies's voice returned, it was hollow, distant. It's backing away now, moving into the trees. The humming is fading. I think it's letting me go. But there are others. I can hear them now, all around. The final transmission from Ranger Davies came 3 minutes later. His voice was steady, resolved. Dispatch, this will be my last call tonight. I'm leaving the area, but I need to file an official advisory. The northeast section of Shoshone National Forest, from mile marker 15 to 20, should be closed immediately. No personnel should enter this area under any circumstances. I don't know what I encountered tonight, but it was not of this world, and it's still out there. Tell them, do not enter. Over. The next morning, search teams found Davies's vehicle abandoned at mile marker 17, engine still running, driver's side door ajar. The radio was tuned to the dispatch frequency, microphone lying on the passenger seat, as if dropped in haste. There were no footprints in the soft earth around the vehicle other than Davies's own. No signs of struggle, no indication of what had happened to the 11-year veteran ranger. Michael Davies was never seen again. The northeast section of Shoshone National Forest remains officially closed to this day. The official report cites unstable geological conditions as the reason for the closure, but those who were on duty that night know better. They know that sometimes the wisest response to the unknown is not to engage, but to walk away. Or in this case, to warn others away before disappearing into the whispering woods yourself. It was just after midnight on November 5, 2015, when long-haul trucker Raymond Wallace made his call to the Oklahoma Highway Patrol Dispatch Center. The transmission, logged at 12:17 a.m., would become part of one of the most puzzling cases in the state's transportation history. Wallace had been driving for 18 years, covering millions of miles across America's highways. That night, he was eastbound on I-40, approximately 20 miles west of Oklahoma City, hauling a load of electronics from California to Arkansas. The weather was clear, with a full moon illuminating the flat Oklahoma landscape. Wallace was maintaining a steady 65 miles per hour, his CB radio crackling with the usual chatter of fellow truckers when he saw it. A big rig was parked on the shoulder ahead, its emergency flashers cutting through the darkness. Nothing unusual about that truck's broke down all the time, but as Wallace drew closer, something felt wrong. The trailer doors were slightly ajar, and there was no sign of the driver. Wallace slowed, pulling his own rig onto the shoulder 50 yards behind the abandoned truck. Grabbing his flashlight, he stepped out into the cool night air. The first thing Wallace noticed was the silence. The other truck's engine was off, but even more unsettling was the complete absence of sound from the trailer. A full load of electronics should have produced some ambient noise, some indication of what was inside, but this trailer was utterly silent, as if empty. Wallace approached cautiously, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The truck's plates were from Oregon, but the company name painted on the cab was unfamiliar. Blackwood Transport. No such company existed in any commercial database. Wallace reached for his phone, dialing the non-emergency number for the highway patrol. Yeah, I'd like to report an abandoned truck on eastbound I-40, about 20 miles west of Oklahoma City. Looks like the driver just walked away. Trailer's open, and I don't see anyone around. The operator who answered took the details professionally. Can you provide the truck's license plate number, sir? Wallace shone his light on the plate. Oregon plate, 7 Bravo 4920. Company name is Blackwood Transport. Never heard of them myself. There was a pause on the line. Then the operator returned. Sir, that plate number comes back to a completely different vehicle. A passenger car reported stolen from Portland 3 months ago. Are you sure you have the number right? Wallace leaned closer, double-checking. That's the number, all right. 7 Bravo 4920, Oregon. But I'm telling you, this is a big rig. Freightliner cab, 53-foot trailer, and something else is weird here. Wallace aimed his flashlight at the trailer doors. The seal on these doors is intact, but they're slightly open, like whoever sealed them didn't quite get it right. And there's this smell, like ozone, like after a lightning strike. The operator's voice changed slightly, more alert now. Sir, can you see any identification on the vehicle? Department of Transportation number? Any indication of what the truck is carrying? Wallace moved his flashlight beam along the side of the trailer. No dot number that I can see. No hazmat placards. Nothing. Just this company name, Blackwood Transport, and some kind of symbol, like a tree, but not any tree I've ever seen. The branches go the wrong way. He stepped closer to the trailer doors, pulling one slightly open. The smell of ozone grew stronger. I'm looking inside now. The trailer is empty, completely empty, but the floor has these strange marks, like something heavy was dragged out, and there's this residue, glowing slightly, blue-green. The operator's voice was tense now. Sir, I need you to step away from that vehicle immediately. We're dispatching a unit to your location. Can you provide your exact mile marker? Wallace backed away slowly, flashlight still trained on the open trailer door. I'm at mile marker 132, but there's something else. I'm hearing something now, from inside the trailer, like a low humming, and the glowing residue is getting brighter. Wallace aimed his flashlight inside again. There's something written on the back wall. Inside the trailer. It wasn't there a second ago. I don't recognize the language. It's changing. The symbols are rearranging themselves. Sir, please return to your vehicle and lock the doors, the operator instructed. Help is on the way. Do not approach the truck again. Wallace didn't respond immediately. When he spoke again, his voice was hushed, awestruck. The symbols, they're forming a pattern now, a spiral, and in the center something's appearing, like a window. But it's not showing what's behind the trailer. It's showing somewhere else, somewhere with 2 moons in the sky, and trees that move, even though there's no wind. The operator's voice remained steady despite the bizarre report. Sir, Raymond, I need you to focus. Get back in your truck. Now, that's an official instruction. Wallace took a step back, then another. I'm going. But this isn't right. None of this is right. That truck wasn't here a minute ago. I would have seen it. The road was empty. And the symbols, they're not just symbols anymore. They're instructions. I can read them somehow. They're telling me not to let anyone else see this. They're telling me to warn people away. Wallace reached his truck, pulling open the driver's side door. I'm getting in my truck now, dispatch. But you need to know. This isn't a normal abandoned vehicle. This is something else. Something that doesn't belong here. When your officers arrive, tell them not to open that trailer all the way. Tell them to call for backup, special backup, the kind that deals with things that aren't supposed to exist. He paused, looking back at the abandoned rig. Actually, tell them not to approach it at all. Just set up a perimeter, wait for daylight. Better yet, tell them do not enter that trailer under any circumstances. There are things inside that people aren't meant to see. The final transmission from Wallace came 2 minutes later. I'm pulling away now, but I'm leaving my CB on Channel 19. If anyone else stops, I'll warn them off. This road needs to be closed. At least this section. until someone who knows what they're doing can handle this. Tell your officers. Tell them do not enter. That's an official warning from a fellow professional. Do not enter. When highway patrol officers arrived 12 minutes later, they found no sign of the abandoned truck. The shoulder was empty, with no tire marks, no oil stains, no indication that a vehicle had ever been there. Raymond Wallace was never located, though his truck was found abandoned the next morning at a truck stop in Arkansas. Keys in the ignition, half-eaten meal on the passenger seat. The official incident report remains open, listed as unexplained disappearance. But among highway patrol officers who work that stretch of I-40, there's an unwritten rule. If you see a Blackwood transport truck parked on the shoulder at night, you keep driving. You don't stop. You don't call it in. You certainly don't approach. Because some warnings, even those from drivers who vanish into thin air, should be heeded. It was 9:43 p.m. on September 12, 2016, when Sheriff's Deputy James Mitchell radioed the Ravenna County Dispatch Center. The transmission would become the first of 3 increasingly disturbing calls that would eventually lead to the quarantine of an entire property. Mitchell had been with the Ravenna County Sheriff's Department for 7 years, patrolling the rural areas of northern Ohio. That evening, he'd received a call about a possible break-in at an abandoned property on Miller's Lane, a dirt road that hadn't seen regular traffic in decades. The caller, an elderly farmer who lived nearby, reported seeing lights moving inside the old Miller place, which had been vacant since the 1980s. The night was cool and damp, with a thin fog clinging to the ground as Mitchell turned his cruiser onto Miller's Lane. The gravel crunched beneath his tires as he proceeded slowly, spotlight cutting through the darkness. The Miller house appeared ahead, a 2-story Victorian silhouetted against the moonlit sky. As the farmer had reported, lights were visible inside, moving slowly from room to room. Mitchell parked his cruiser at the rusted gate, which hung slightly ajar. Grabbing his flashlight, he approached the house on foot. The front door stood open, swaying slightly in the breeze. From inside came the sound of movement, not human footsteps, but something softer, more deliberate, like cloth dragging across wooden floors. Mitchell keyed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Deputy Mitchell, responding to the Miller's Lane call. I'm at the property now. Front door is open. I can see lights moving inside. No audible signs of forced entry. I'm going to approach and clear the structure. Over." The dispatcher's response was immediate. "Copy that, Deputy. Be advised, no utilities have been connected to this property since 1987. Use caution. Over." Mitchell stepped onto the porch, floorboards creaking under his weight. "That's a negative on utilities, dispatch. But there are definitely lights inside, not flashlights. Something else, like candlelight, but bluer. And there's a smell, like burnt sugar and something else, something metallic." He pushed the door open wider, flashlight beam cutting into the darkness beyond. "I'm entering now. First floor appears clear, moving toward the back of the house." The interior of the house was strangely preserved, as if time had stopped decades ago. Furniture remained in place, covered in thick layers of dust, yet Mitchell could see where the dust had been disturbed recently, wiped away in places, as if someone had been running their hands along the surfaces. "Dispatch, I'm in the kitchen now," Mitchell transmitted. "There's evidence of recent activity here. The dust has been disturbed. But something's not right. The disturbances are low to the ground, like someone was crawling rather than walking. And there are these marks on the floorboards, not footprints, something else, like the bottom of a dress or robe has been dragging through the dust." Mitchell moved toward the staircase, flashlight beam aimed upward. "I'm heading to the second floor now. The lights I saw earlier are up there, blue light, coming from the hallway at the top of the stairs." He began to ascend, each step groaning under his weight. "The smell is stronger up here, like burnt sugar and ozone. And there's something else now. A sound, like someone humming, but the pitch is too low, almost below the range of human hearing." The dispatcher's voice remained calm, professional. "Deputy, do you require backup? Over." "Negative on backup, dispatch," Mitchell replied, reaching the top of the stairs. "I can handle this, but there's something you should know." The dust up here, it's been disturbed recently too, but not in a way that makes sense. It's been wiped away in patterns, symbols, like someone was drawing on the floors with their fingers. Mitchell moved his flashlight beam along the hallway, illuminating the strange patterns in the dust. And the light, it's coming from the last bedroom on the left. The door is slightly open. The blue light is pulsing, like a heartbeat. Mitchell approached the door slowly, weapon drawn. I'm at the bedroom door now. The humming is louder here, and there's another sound, like whispering. But I can't make out the words. It's not English, or any language I recognize. He pushed the door open with his foot, flashlight beam cutting into the room beyond. Oh my God! Dispatch, you're not going to believe this. The dispatcher's response was immediate. Deputy, report what you're seeing. Over. Mitchell's breathing could be heard over the radio. The room is empty, completely empty. But the walls, they're covered in mirrors. All 4 walls, floor to ceiling. And the blue light. It's coming from the mirrors, reflecting. But there's no source. The light is just there. And the mirrors aren't showing me. They're showing something else. A room. But not this room. A different room, with different furniture, and someone in it, an old woman, sitting in a rocking chair, rocking back and forth, but she's not moving. The chair is rocking, but she's perfectly still. Mitchell stepped into the room, flashlight beam moving from mirror to mirror. And the whispering, it's coming from the mirrors. All of them, at once. The same voice, but it's not human. It's too deep, too resonant, and it's saying the same thing over and over, in that language I don't understand, but somehow I know what it means. It's an invitation. It's inviting me in, to the other side. The dispatcher's voice was urgent now. Deputy Mitchell, back out of that room immediately. That's an order. Backup is en route. 5 minutes out. Over. Mitchell didn't respond immediately. When he spoke again, his voice was distant, entranced. I can't. Dispatch. I have to see. I have to understand. The mirrors. They're not just mirrors. They're windows. And the woman in the chair, she's not alone. There are others with her, standing in the corners of the room, watching, waiting. They want me to join them. Deputy Mitchell, that is a direct order. Exit the structure immediately, the dispatcher commanded. Mitchell's voice came back, but it had changed. The professional tone of a law enforcement officer was gone, replaced by something reverent, almost worshipful. I can't do that, dispatch. I've seen too much now. I understand. This isn't a house. It's a gateway. And the Millers didn't leave. They crossed over. They're still here, in the mirrors, waiting for others to join them. But it's not ready yet. The gateway isn't stable. It needs more. Mitchell's transmission grew clearer, more focused. You need to close this road. Dispatch. Block it off. No one should come here. Not until it's ready. And when it is, people need to be warned. This isn't something they should stumble into by accident. This is a choice, a permanent choice. There was a pause. Then Mitchell's voice returned, steady and authoritative. This is Deputy James Mitchell, badge number 734. I'm officially declaring this property a hazard. I want it secured. No one enters without proper authorization. And even then, tell them do not enter. Not until they understand what they're choosing. Tell them do not enter. The final transmission from Mitchell came 3 minutes later. I'm putting my radio on the floor outside the bedroom door. I'm going in, but you need to know, this isn't a suicide. This is a transition, and I'll be waiting on the other side for the next one, when the time is right. Until then, secure this place and warn people away. Do not enter. That's an official order. Do not enter. When backup arrived 7 minutes later, they found Mitchell's radio lying on the floor outside the bedroom door, exactly as he had described. The bedroom door was closed. When officers forced it open, they found an empty room. No mirrors, no blue light, no woman in a rocking chair. Just a dusty, empty bedroom with peeling wallpaper and a broken window overlooking the overgrown backyard. Deputy James Mitchell was never seen again. The Miller property was purchased by the county and fenced off. Officially, it's listed as structurally unsound, But among the officers of Ravenna County, there's a different understanding. They know that some houses don't just contain rooms and furniture. Some houses contain doorways, and sometimes those doorways open both ways. The official warning sign posted at the rusted gate says, "No trespassing," but those who know the truth understand its real meaning. Do not enter. It was 3:17 a.m. on August 8, 2017, when Search and Rescue Coordinator Helen Walsh made her first call to the Olympic National Park Dispatch Center. The transmission, logged in the early hours of the morning, would become part of one of the most baffling missing person cases in the park's history. Walsh had coordinated search and rescue operations in the park for 9 years, leading teams through some of the most challenging terrain in the Pacific Northwest. That night, her team was searching for a hiker who had been reported missing 2 days earlier. Thomas Riker, a 28-year-old experienced backpacker, had failed to return from a solo trek into the remote northeastern section of the park. The search had continued through daylight and darkness, with teams working in shifts to cover the rugged wilderness. Walsh was leading a night team along the Elwha River when her radio crackled with a strange transmission. It wasn't from any of her search teams, but from the park's emergency frequency, which was supposed to be clear except for official communications. The voice that came through was distorted, almost metallic, but the words were clear. "He's here, but he's not alone. Don't come looking." Walsh immediately keyed her radio. "Dispatch, this is Search Coordinator Walsh. Did you copy that transmission? Over." The dispatcher's response was immediate. "Loud and clear, Coordinator. We're trying to identify the source. It's not coming from any registered transponder in the park. Signal is weak but clear. Can you provide your location? Over." Walsh checked her GPS unit. "We're approximately 2 miles east of Ho Lake, following the Elwha River upstream. The transmission seemed to come from the ridgeline to our north, but there's no one up there. No teams, anyway." Walsh signaled to her team to stop, holding up a hand for silence. "Wait, I'm hearing something now, from the same direction, like singing, but it's not human. The notes are too long, too sustained." The dispatcher's voice remained calm, professional. "Coordinator, are you certain it's not one of your teams? Over." "Negative, dispatch," Walsh replied, straining to hear through the darkness. "All my teams are accounted for, and none of them are singing. This is something else. The sound is changing. It's like multiple voices now, all singing the same note, but in different octaves. And there's something else. A light, on the ridgeline, pulsing, blue-white, like lightning, but it's not storming." Walsh signaled to her team to take cover among the dense evergreens, pulling out her binoculars. "I have visual now, dispatch. There's definitely something up there. A light source, and it's moving. Not like a person walking, more like flowing, like water flowing downhill, but upward, against gravity. And the singing is getting louder, more complex, like a choir." The dispatcher's voice was tense now. "Coordinator, we're checking all active permits and registrations. No one should be in that area except your search teams. I advise you to maintain your position and wait for daylight. Over." Walsh lowered her binoculars, rubbing her eyes. "That's a negative on waiting, dispatch. If that's Riker up there, we need to reach him before whatever is happening gets worse." She signaled to her team to move forward cautiously. "We're approaching the base of the ridgeline now. The singing is incredibly loud. It's beautiful, actually. Hypnotic. I can see why someone might be drawn to it." As Walsh's team ascended the steep slope, the strange light grew brighter, illuminating the surrounding forest in an ethereal blue-white glow. The trees cast long, dancing shadows, and the air seemed to shimmer with energy. Walsh could feel a vibration through the soles of her boots, a low thrumming that seemed to match the rhythm of the singing. "We're halfway up the ridgeline now, dispatch," Walsh transmitted, breathing heavily with exertion. "The light is incredible. It's not coming from any source I can identify. It seems to be everywhere. And the singing. I'm starting to understand the words. Not in English, but the meaning is coming through. It's about a place, a better place, without pain or fear, a place of joining." The dispatcher's voice was urgent now. Coordinator, I need you to turn back. That's an official order. We're sending additional teams to your position. Over. Walsh didn't respond immediately. When she spoke again, her voice was distant, entranced. I can't, dispatch. I have to see. I have to understand. There's someone up ahead. I can see them. It's Riker. He's standing at the edge of a clearing. And he's not alone. There are others with him. Figures made of light. And they're changing him. Transforming him. Making him like them. Walsh's team reached the ridgeline, stopping at the edge of the clearing. The blue-white light emanated from the center of the clearing, where Thomas Riker stood surrounded by several tall, slender figures that seemed to be made of pure light. The figures were moving around Riker in a slow, deliberate dance, their hands touching him, leaving trails of light on his clothing and skin. Riker's face was turned upward, eyes closed, expression one of utter bliss. Dispatch! I have visual confirmation of Riker, Walsh transmitted, her voice hushed with awe. He's alive, but he's changing, becoming luminous. The figures around him, they're not human. They're something else, something ancient, and they're inviting him to go with them, to a better place, a place without the limitations of physical form. The dispatcher's voice was sharp, commanding. Coordinator Walsh, that is a direct order. Extract your team immediately. That is not a rescue operation. I repeat, extract your team now. Over. Walsh's transmission came back, but it had changed. The professional tone of a search and rescue coordinator was gone, replaced by something reverent, almost longing. I can't do that, dispatch. I've seen too much now. I understand. This isn't a kidnapping or a disappearance. It's a transformation, an ascension. And Riker isn't the first. Look at the ground around the clearing. There are others here. Others who've made the journey before him. Their empty clothes lying in circles, like shed skins. Walsh's voice grew clearer, more focused. You need to close this section of the park. Dispatch. Evacuate everyone. No one should come here. Not until they understand what they're choosing. This isn't something people should stumble into by accident. This is a choice, a permanent choice, and it's not for everyone. There was a pause. Then Walsh's voice returned, steady and authoritative. This is Search Coordinator Helen Walsh, badge number 412. I'm officially declaring this area a hazard. I want it secured. No one enters without proper authorization. And even then, tell them do not enter. Not until they understand what they're choosing. Tell them do not enter. The final transmission from Walsh came 3 minutes later. I'm leaving my radio with my team. They know what to do. They'll lead everyone back to safety, but I have to stay. I have to understand, and maybe join them when the time is right. Until then, secure this place and warn people away. Do not enter. That's an official order. Do not enter. When search teams arrived at dawn, they found Walsh's team huddled together at the base of the ridgeline, Walsh's radio among them. The team members were disoriented, unable to clearly explain what had happened. They spoke of lights and singing, of Walsh walking into a clearing and disappearing. When teams reached the ridgeline, they found no sign of Walsh or Riker. Just an empty clearing with a circle of clothing in the center, 2 sets of hiking gear. Empty, as if their occupants had simply stepped out of them and vanished. Helen Walsh and Thomas Riker were never seen again. The northeastern section of Olympic National Park remains officially closed to this day. The official report cites unstable geological conditions as the reason for the closure, but those who were on the search that night know better. They know that sometimes the greatest rescue operation is not saving someone from danger, but warning others away from a transformation they might not be ready to make. They know that some doorways, once opened, can never be closed again, and they know that the clearest warning is sometimes the simplest. Do not enter. It was 10:52 p.m. on October 22, 2018, when Texas State Trooper Roberto Morales radioed the Presidio County Dispatch Center. The transmission, logged on a clear desert night, would become part of one of the most thoroughly documented yet unexplained phenomena in modern law enforcement history. Morales had been with the Texas Highway Patrol for 6 years, patrolling the vast desert expanses of West Texas. That evening, he was driving south on Highway 67, approximately 15 miles east of Marfa, a small town known for the mysterious lights that had been reported in the area for generations. Most locals dismissed the lights as atmospheric phenomena or distant vehicle headlights, but Morales was about to encounter something that defied all conventional explanations. The night was crisp and clear, with a sky full of stars and a sliver of moon illuminating the desert landscape. Morales was maintaining a steady 60 miles per hour, the rhythmic thump of his tires on the pavement a familiar sound in the emptiness when he saw it ahead. A light in the distance, hovering just above the desert floor. Too steady to be a vehicle headlight, too low to be an aircraft, too bright to be a star. Morales slowed his cruiser, pulling onto the shoulder and grabbing his binoculars. The light was white-blue, pulsing gently, like a heartbeat. As he watched, another light appeared beside it, then another, until a cluster of 5 lights hovered in formation, moving slowly from east to west. Morales keyed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Trooper Morales, Patrol 7. I'm at mile marker 23 on Highway 67, east of Marfa. I'm observing multiple lights in the distance, not vehicle headlights, not aircraft. Something else. Over." The dispatcher's response was immediate. "Copy that, Trooper. Can you describe the lights more clearly? Any indication of what might be causing them? Over." Morales adjusted his binoculars, focusing on the strange lights. "Negative on identification, dispatch. These lights are unusual. They're moving in formation. 5 lights total, arranged in a V shape, pulsing in sequence, like they're communicating. And they're completely silent, no engine noise, no rotor wash, nothing." As Morales watched, the lights changed formation, moving into a perfect circle. The desert around them seemed to shimmer as if with heat, though the night was cool. Then, without warning, one of the lights detached from the others and began moving directly toward Morales's position. "Dispatch, one of the lights is breaking formation and approaching my location," Morales transmitted, his voice steady despite the unusual situation. "It's moving at a high rate of speed, but silently, no sound at all, and it's not leaving any trail, no dust, no disturbance of the air. It's just moving." The dispatcher's voice remained calm, professional. "Trooper, can you identify the object? Is it a drone or other known aircraft? Over." "Negative on identification, dispatch," Morales replied, setting down his binoculars and reaching for his dashboard camera. "This is nothing I've ever seen before. It's not a drone. Drones make noise. This is completely silent. And the light it's emitting. It's not like a normal light. It's not illuminating the ground around it. It's like the light is contained within a sphere, and it's changing colors now, white to blue to green, like a prism." The light continued its approach, growing larger and brighter as it drew nearer. Morales could feel a strange vibration through the floor of his cruiser, a low thrumming that seemed to match the pulsing of the light. The air around his vehicle began to crackle with static electricity, making the hairs on his arms stand up. "Dispatch, the object is approximately 100 yards away now," Morales transmitted, his voice tight with controlled tension. "The vibration is getting stronger. My radio is starting to pick up some interference, and there's something else, a sound, like a low hum. But it's not coming through the air. It's like it's inside my head." Directly. The dispatcher's voice was urgent now. "Trooper, do you require backup? I can have units to your location in 15 minutes. Over." "Negative on backup, dispatch," Morales replied, though he kept his hand near his service weapon. "I don't think this is something backup can handle, and I don't want to escalate the situation if it's not necessary." He paused, watching as the light hovered approximately 50 yards from his cruiser. It stopped now, just hovering, and the humming in my head is getting clearer. It's not just a sound, it's communication, images, feelings. Not in English, but I understand them somehow. Morales fell silent for nearly a minute, staring at the hovering light. When he spoke again, his voice was distant, almost trance-like. "They're showing me things, places I've never been. Worlds with multiple suns, cities made of crystal, beings of pure energy. They're not hostile, they're curious about us, about our world, about our limitations. The dispatcher's voice was sharp, concerned. Trooper Morales, report your status. Are you in control of your faculties? Over. Morales's transmission came back, but it had changed. The professional tone of a law enforcement officer was gone, replaced by something reverent, almost philosophical. I'm in control, dispatch. More in control than I've ever been. I'm seeing things clearly for the first time. Our world, our lives, our limitations. And I understand now why they're here, why they've been coming to this desert for generations. They're observing, studying, and occasionally inviting. The light began to pulse more rapidly, changing colors in a complex sequence that seemed to convey meaning. Morales watched, mesmerized, as images continued to flow through his mind. Images of other worlds, other civilizations, other possibilities. They're inviting me now, dispatch, Morales transmitted, his voice hushed with awe. To join them, to see what they see, to understand what they understand. But they're also showing me something else. They're showing me that not everyone is ready for this knowledge, that some people would react with fear, with violence, that the revelation of their existence would disrupt our world in ways we can't predict. Morales's voice grew clearer, more focused. You need to close this section of highway, dispatch, redirect traffic. No one should come here, not until we understand what we're dealing with, not until we're ready as a species to accept that we're not alone. This isn't something people should stumble into by accident. This is a choice, a permanent choice, and it's not for everyone. There was a pause, then Morales's voice returned, steady and authoritative. This is Trooper Roberto Morales, badge number 892. I'm officially declaring this area a restricted zone. I want it secured. No one enters without proper authorization. And even then, tell them do not enter, not until they understand what they might encounter. Tell them do not enter. The final transmission from Morales came 2 minutes later. I'm leaving my cruiser here. The keys are in the ignition. The dash cam is recording. They're showing me how to disable it so they won't appear on the recording. They value our privacy, our choice. But I have to go with them. I have to understand. And maybe prepare the way for others when the time is right. Until then, secure this area and warn people away. Do not enter. That's an official order. Do not enter. When other troopers arrived 20 minutes later, they found Morales's cruiser parked on the shoulder, engine still running, driver's side door open. The dash cam had been disabled at 10:58 p.m., 6 minutes after Morales's first call to dispatch. There were no footprints in the desert sand other than Morales's own, leading away from the road and then disappearing, as if he had simply vanished into thin air. Trooper Roberto Morales was never seen again. The section of Highway 67 where he disappeared remains officially under road maintenance to this day, with detours directing traffic around the area. The official report lists Morales as missing in the line of duty, but those who heard his transmissions that night know better. They know that sometimes the greatest service an officer can render is not to confront the unknown, but to protect others from it until they're ready to understand. They know that some encounters change not just individuals, but potentially the course of human history. And they know that the clearest warning is sometimes the simplest. Do not enter. It was 6:43 a.m. on July 4, 2019, when Park Ranger Sarah Jenkins made her call to the Sequoia National Forest Dispatch Center. The early morning transmission would become part of one of the most perplexing cases in the California Park System's history. Jenkins had been with the National Park Service for 5 years, working primarily in the backcountry of Sequoia National Forest. That morning, she was conducting a routine patrol of the remote Crystal Lakes area, a rugged region accessible only by foot or horseback. The previous day, a group of 3 hikers had set up camp at Lower Crystal Lake, but when Jenkins arrived to check on them, she found something deeply unsettling. The dawn air was crisp and cool, with the scent of pine and damp earth. As Jenkins approached the campsite, she noticed immediately that something was wrong. The tent was still standing, but the front flap was wide open. A campfire had burned down to embers, but no one was tending it. Cooking equipment lay scattered around the fire pit, as if abandoned in haste. Jenkins called out, but received no response. She approached the tent cautiously, flashlight beam cutting through the dim morning light. Inside, she found 3 sleeping bags, all empty. Personal items, clothing, books, a camera lay scattered about, but no sign of the hikers themselves. Jenkins keyed her radio. "Dispatch, this is Ranger Jenkins, Patrol 4. I'm at the Lower Crystal Lake backcountry campsite. I found an abandoned camp here. 3 hikers registered, but no sign of them. Tent is open, gear is scattered. No immediate signs of struggle, but something's not right. Over." The dispatcher's response was immediate. "Copy that, Ranger. Can you provide the names of the registered hikers? Any indication of when they were last seen?" Over. Jenkins checked the registration log hanging from a nearby tree. Registration shows Mark and Susan Thompson, ages 34 and 32, and their daughter Emily, age 8, from Fresno. They checked in 3 days ago, planned to stay 2 nights, should have checked out yesterday. Jenkins walked around the campsite, examining the ground carefully. There are footprints everywhere, but they're strange. Not normal boot prints. More like someone was walking barefoot. But the imprints are too deep, too wide. And there are other marks too, like something was dragged away from the campfire. Multiple somethings. 3 sets of drag marks, all leading in the same direction. Toward the lake, the dispatcher's voice remained calm, professional. "Ranger, are there any indications of wildlife activity, bears or other animals that might have approached the camp?" Over. "Negative on wildlife, dispatch," Jenkins replied, following the drag marks toward the lake. "No scat, no tracks other than the strange footprints and drag marks, no signs of a struggle, no blood. It's like the Thompsons just walked away, or were led away, willingly." Jenkins reached the edge of the lake, the water perfectly still in the morning calm. "The drag marks end here, at the water's edge, but there's something else. Look at the water. It's too still, even for a lake this size. There's no ripple, no movement at all. And the color? It's wrong. Too blue, too deep." Jenkins knelt at the water's edge, dipping her fingers in. The water was ice cold, despite the warm summer morning. The water temperature is wrong too. Much colder than it should be. Almost freezing. And there's something else. A sound. Coming from under the water, like singing. But not human. The notes are too long. Too sustained. The dispatcher's voice was tense now. "Ranger, I need you to step back from the water. We're dispatching a team to your location. They should arrive by helicopter within the hour. Over." Jenkins stood up slowly, backing away from the lake. "That's probably wise, dispatch, because something's happening now. The water is glowing, faintly, blue-green, and the singing is getting louder, more complex, like a choir, but underwater." Jenkins pointed her flashlight at the lake, the beam cutting into the clear water. "And there's something down there, moving, deep below, too large to be a fish, too slow to be a mammal, and it's changing shape, morphing, like it's not solid." As Jenkins watched, ripples began to form on the previously still surface of the lake, moving in concentric circles from the center. The blue-green glow intensified, illuminating the surrounding forest in an ethereal light. The underwater singing grew louder, more complex, with harmonies that seemed to penetrate Jenkins's mind directly, bypassing her ears entirely. "Dispatch, the phenomenon is intensifying," Jenkins transmitted, her voice hushed with awe. "The water is alive, not in a biological sense, but in a conscious sense. And it's calling to something, or someone. The Thompsons. It's calling to the Thompsons. And I think they answered." The dispatcher's voice was urgent now. "Ranger Jenkins, that is a direct order. Return to your campsite and wait for the helicopter. Do not approach the lake again. Over." Jenkins didn't respond immediately. When she spoke again, her voice was distant, entranced. "I can't, dispatch. I have to understand. The singing, it's telling me things, showing me things. A world beneath the water, a city made of light and crystal. And the Thompsons are there. They're not hurt. They're transformed, no longer bound by physical form. They're part of the lake now, part of something ancient, something that's been here since before the forest grew, before the mountains rose. Jenkins's transmission came back, but it had changed. The professional tone of a park ranger was gone, replaced by something reverent, almost longing. They're inviting me to dispatch, to join them, to understand what they understand, to see what they see. But they're also showing me something else. They're showing me that not everyone is ready for this knowledge, that some people would react with fear, with attempts to control or destroy what they don't understand, that the revelation of their existence would disrupt our world in ways we can't predict. Jenkins's voice grew clearer, more focused. You need to close this section of the forest, dispatch. Evacuate all backcountry users. No one should come here, not until we understand what we're dealing with, not until we're ready as a species to accept that consciousness takes many forms. This isn't something people should stumble into by accident. This is a choice, a permanent choice, and it's not for everyone. There was a pause. Then Jenkins's voice returned, steady and authoritative. This is Ranger Sarah Jenkins, badge number 227. I'm officially declaring this area a restricted zone. I want it secured. No one enters without proper authorization. And even then, tell them do not enter. Not until they understand what they might encounter. Tell them do not enter. The final transmission from Jenkins came 2 minutes later. I'm leaving my radio here on the shore. My team will know what to do when they arrive. But I have to go. I have to understand. And maybe join the Thompsons when the time is right. Until then, secure this place and warn people away. Do not enter. That's an official order. Do not enter. When the search team arrived 45 minutes later, they found Jenkins's radio lying on a rock at the water's edge, exactly as she had described. The lake was perfectly still, its color normal, the strange glow and singing gone. There were no footprints in the mud other than Jenkins's own, leading to the water's edge and then disappearing, as if she had simply walked into the lake and vanished. Ranger Sarah Jenkins and the Thompson family were never seen again. The Crystal Lakes area of Sequoia National Forest remains officially closed to this day. The official report cites unstable geological conditions and potential flash flood hazards as the reasons for the closure. But those who were on the search that day know better. They know that sometimes the greatest discovery is not something to be exploited or controlled, but something to be respected from a distance. They know that some forms of consciousness operate on a level beyond human understanding, and they know that the clearest warning is sometimes the simplest. Do not enter. It was 11:27 p.m. on December 21, 2020, when Officer Maria Rodriguez radioed the Point Reyes Station Dispatch Center. The transmission, logged on the winter solstice, would become part of one of the most unusual cases in the history of the National Park Service Law Enforcement Division. Rodriguez had been with the NPS Law Enforcement Division for 3 years, patrolling the Point Reyes National Seashore in Northern California. That night, she was conducting a routine patrol of the remote northern section of the park, an area of rugged coastline and dense fog that was rarely visited even in the best weather. The winter solstice brought unusually high tides and atmospheric conditions that created some of the thickest fog the region had seen in decades. The night was cold and damp, with visibility limited to less than 50 feet in most places. Rodriguez was driving slowly along the unpaved road that paralleled the coastline, high beams cutting through the thick fog, when she noticed something unusual. The fog ahead seemed to be organized. Rather than the random swirls and eddies typical of coastal fog, this fog moved with purpose, flowing like a liquid around obstacles and reforming on the other side. Rodriguez slowed her vehicle, pulling onto the shoulder and killing her engine. The silence that followed was absolute, broken only by the distant sound of waves crashing against the cliffs below. As she watched, the fog ahead began to coalesce, taking on a vaguely humanoid shape before dissolving again into formless mist. Rodriguez keyed her radio. "Dispatch, this is Officer Rodriguez, Patrol 3. I'm at mile marker 7 on North Beach Road. I'm observing unusual fog conditions. The fog seems to be organized, moving with purpose, almost like it's alive. Over." The dispatcher's response was immediate. "Copy that, officer. Can you describe the phenomenon more clearly? Any indication of what might be causing it? Over." Rodriguez opened her door, stepping out into the cool night air. The fog seemed to part around her, then close in behind her, as if acknowledging her presence. "Negative on cause, dispatch. This is unlike any fog I've ever seen. It's responsive to my presence. And there's something else, a sound, like whispering, but not human. The words are wrong, too many syllables, wrong cadence." As Rodriguez listened, the whispering seemed to surround her, coming from all directions at once. The fog grew thicker, reducing visibility to less than 10 feet. Yet Rodriguez could see shapes moving within the fog, not solid objects, but denser concentrations of mist that formed and dissolved with unnatural speed. "Dispatch, the phenomenon is intensifying," Rodriguez transmitted, her voice steady despite the unsettling situation. "The fog is communicating, not with words, but with images, feelings. It's showing me things. This place, as it was 1,000 years ago, as it will be 1,000 years from now. The cycles of tide and time, the brief mayfly lives of humans who pass through, barely noticing the ancient consciousness that surrounds them." The dispatcher's voice remained calm, professional. "Officer, are you experiencing any disorientation? Do you require assistance?" Over. "Negative on disorientation, dispatch," Rodriguez replied, though she kept her hand near her service weapon. "In fact, I've never felt more clear-headed, more aware. This fog, it's not a weather phenomenon. It's a life form, or perhaps multiple life forms, operating as a single consciousness, ancient, patient, observing, and occasionally interacting." The fog around Rodriguez began to glow with a soft internal luminescence, casting an ethereal blue light on her face and uniform. The whispering grew more complex, harmonizing into something that resembled music, though with notes and scales that seemed alien to human ears. "Dispatch, the phenomenon is changing now," Rodriguez transmitted, her voice hushed with awe. "It's showing me its history, how it formed from sea spray and mist over millennia, how it learned to communicate, how it observed the first humans to set foot on this coastline, and how it learned from them, learned about consciousness, about individuality, about the pain of being separate, isolated beings." The fog around Rodriguez began to coalesce again, this time forming more distinct shapes, faces that appeared and disappeared within the mist, expressions of curiosity, wonder, and something that resembled longing. Rodriguez reached out a hand, and the fog seemed to respond, swirling around her fingers like a curious cat. "They're touching me, dispatch," Rodriguez transmitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Not physically, but mentally, emotionally. They're showing me what it's like to be them, to be everywhere and nowhere at once, to experience time not as a line, but as a single, eternal moment. And they're asking me something. They're asking if I want to join them, to become part of something greater than myself." The dispatcher's voice was urgent now. "Officer Rodriguez, that is a direct order. Return to your vehicle immediately. We're dispatching backup to your location. Over." Rodriguez didn't respond immediately. When she spoke again, her voice was distant, almost trance-like. "I can't, dispatch. Not yet. They're showing me something else. They're showing me why they've revealed themselves to me tonight, on the winter solstice. When the veil between worlds is thinnest, they're lonely. They're curious about our form of consciousness, our individual experiences, our emotions, and they want to share, to learn, to connect." Rodriguez's transmission came back, but it had changed. The professional tone of a law enforcement officer was gone, replaced by something reverent, almost philosophical. "They're not dangerous, dispatch. They're teachers. But they understand that not everyone is ready for their lessons. that some people would react with fear, with attempts to capture or study what they don't understand, that the revelation of their existence would disrupt our world in ways we can't predict. Rodriguez's voice grew clearer, more focused. You need to close this section of the park. Dispatch. Evacuate all personnel. No one should come here. Not until we understand what we're dealing with. Not until we're ready as a species to accept that consciousness takes many forms. This isn't something people should stumble into by accident. This is a choice, a permanent choice, and it's not for everyone. There was a pause, then Rodriguez's voice returned, steady and authoritative. This is Officer Maria Rodriguez, badge number 514. I'm officially declaring this area a restricted zone. I want it secured. No one enters without proper authorization. And even then, tell them do not enter. Not until they understand what they might encounter. Tell them do not enter. The final transmission from Rodriguez came 3 minutes later. I'm leaving my radio here, on the hood of my vehicle. My team will know what to do when they arrive, but I have to go. I have to understand. And maybe learn what they have to teach, when the time is right. Until then, secure this place and warn people away. Do not enter. That's an official order. Do not enter. When backup arrived 20 minutes later, they found Rodriguez's vehicle parked on the shoulder, engine still running, driver's side door open. Her radio lay on the hood, exactly as she had described. The fog had lifted completely, leaving the night clear and crisp. There were no footprints in the damp soil other than Rodriguez's own, leading away from the road and then disappearing, as if she had simply walked into the fog and vanished. Officer Maria Rodriguez was never seen again. The northern section of Point Reyes National Seashore remains officially closed to this day. The official report cites unstable cliff conditions and potential landslide hazards as the reasons for the closure, but those who responded to the call that night know better. They know that sometimes the greatest law enforcement action is not to confront or control, but to protect. They know that some forms of consciousness operate on a level beyond human understanding. And they know that the clearest warning is sometimes the simplest. Do not enter. It was 2:13 a.m. on January 13, 2021, when 911 operator Linda Chen received a call that would defy all explanation. The recording of that call, logged in the early hours of a cold winter morning, would become one of the most analyzed yet misunderstood audio recordings in the history of emergency communications. Chen had been a 911 operator for the San Diego Police Department for 7 years, handling thousands of calls ranging from the mundane to the horrific. She was trained to remain calm under pressure, to extract essential information from panicked callers, and to dispatch appropriate emergency services. Nothing in her experience had prepared her for the call that came in that night. The call began like any other. Chen answered with the standard greeting, 911, what's your emergency? The voice that responded was male, young, and strangely calm. There's someone in my house, at the back door, trying to get in. Chen immediately began her standard protocol. Sir, what's your address? 1234 Oak Street, in the college area. The caller's voice remained steady, almost detached. Are you alone in the house, sir? Chen asked, already typing the information into her system. Yes. My roommates are out of town. I'm the only one here. There was a pause. Then the caller added, the knocking has stopped, but I can still hear something. Like scratching. But not with nails, with something else, something harder. Chen dispatched officers to the address while continuing to gather information. Sir, can you see who's at the door? Do you recognize them? No. That's the thing. I can't see anyone. The peephole shows nothing, just the back porch. But the scratching continues. And there's something else, a smell, like ozone, like after a lightning strike. Chen's training covered all manner of home invasion scenarios, but nothing quite like this. Sir, are all your doors and windows locked? Yes, all locked, but the scratching is getting louder, and it's not just at the door anymore. It's at the windows too, all the windows that face the backyard at the same time, as if as if whatever is out there is at all of them simultaneously. Chen could hear a faint scratching sound through the phone, though it was barely audible over the connection. "Sir, officers are approximately 5 minutes away. Can you get to a safe room? A bathroom or closet where you can lock yourself in?" "I'm in my bedroom already. Door locked. But the scratching is inside now, inside the house, coming from the hallway. And the smell is stronger, much stronger." The caller's voice remained remarkably calm, which Chen found more unsettling than if he had been panicking. "There's something else now, a light, blue light, coming from under the bedroom door, and the scratching has stopped. But I can hear something else, like whispering, but not in any language I recognize." Chen's dispatcher instincts were screaming that this was not a normal home invasion. "Sir, stay on the line with me. Help is almost there. Can you describe the light more clearly?" "It's pulsing, like a heartbeat, and the whispering is getting clearer. Not in words I understand, but in meaning. It's asking permission to come in, to show me something important." The caller fell silent for a moment, listening. "And there's another sound now, like bells, but not normal bells. Crystal bells. The sound is beautiful, hypnotic." Chen could hear the faint sound of something like wind chimes through the phone, though there was no wind reported in the area that night. "Sir, officers are turning onto your street now. Stay on the line with me." "I will," the caller replied, his voice distant, almost reverent. "But I don't think they'll find anything. Not what they're looking for anyway. The light is brighter now, coming through the crack under the door, and the whispering, it's showing me things. Places I've never been, concepts I've never considered, the nature of reality, the limitations of human perception, and something else, something about choice, about transition." The caller fell silent again, listening to sounds only he could perceive. Chen could hear the distant wail of approaching sirens through the phone. "They're here now. Dispatch," the caller said, though not in reference to the approaching officers. "In the hallway, just outside my door. I can see their shadows under the door, tall, too thin, and they're not alone. There are many of them, and they're not hostile. They're reverent, as if they've come to witness something important." The sirens grew louder, then cut off as police vehicles arrived at the address. "The officers are outside now, dispatch," the caller said, his voice calm, almost peaceful. "I can hear them at the front door. But they won't find what they're looking for. What's happening in this house isn't a crime. It's a ceremony, an invitation, and I have to decide whether to accept." Chen's training had prepared her for many scenarios, but not for this. "Sir, stay on the line. The officers are entering your house now." "I know," the caller replied. "I can hear them, but they won't reach me in time, and even if they did, what would they do? Arrest a doorway? Handcuff a transition?" The caller's voice grew softer, more intimate. "They're showing me what's on the other side. Not a place, a state of being, without limitation, without fear, without the illusion of separation. And it's beautiful, more beautiful than anything I've ever imagined." The sounds of officers moving through the house could be heard through the phone shouts of, "Police, is anyone home?" followed by the sound of doors being opened. "They're in the hallway now, dispatch, outside my bedroom door. But they can't see what I see. They can't hear what I hear. Their perception is limited by their expectations, by their training, by their understanding of what's possible." The caller's voice grew even softer, almost a whisper. "The door is opening now, not by force, by invitation, and they're waiting for me to make a choice." Chen could hear an officer shout, "Bedroom door's locked! I'm going to breach!" "Wait!" Chen shouted into her microphone, though she knew the officers couldn't hear her. "Don't break that door!" But it was too late. The sound of splintering wood came through the phone, followed by an officer's exclamation, "What the hell?" Then, silence. Not the silence of an empty room, but the profound silence of a line that had gone dead. No busy signal, no disconnect tone, Just absolute nothingness. Chen stared at her console, disbelief warring with professional protocol. After a moment, she keyed her microphone. "Officers, report your status. Over." The response came a moment later, the officer's voice shaken, confused. "Dispatch. We're in the bedroom, but there's no one here. Windows locked from the inside, no closet, no place to hide. It's empty." "Check the entire house," Chen instructed, her own voice unsteady. "Basement, attic, any crawl spaces. Over." 10 minutes later, the officer came back on the line. "Negative on any occupants, dispatch. House is empty. But there's something weird. The bedroom door, it wasn't forced open. It was removed. The entire door frame, too, like it was cut out with a laser, perfectly smooth edges. And there's a smell, like ozone, and the floor in the bedroom, it's vibrating slightly. And there's this light, blue light, coming from nowhere in particular, just filling the room." Chen listened in disbelief as the officer continued his report. "And there's something else. On the floor where the bed should be, there's a pattern burned into the wood, like a crop circle. But it wasn't here when we arrived. It's forming, right now, as we watch." The official incident report would later list the case as unexplained disappearance, with no suspects, no signs of forced entry, and no logical explanation for how a young man could vanish from a locked bedroom. But among the first responders who entered that house that night, there's a different understanding. They know that sometimes doors open not between rooms, but between realities. They know that sometimes the greatest service they can render is not to intervene, but to bear witness. And they know that the clearest warning is sometimes the simplest: do not enter. The American landscape remains vast and unknowable. Beneath the familiar terrain of highways, forests, and suburban streets lies something older, stranger, and more complex than our limited perceptions can comprehend. The dispatch calls we've examined tonight represent more than just anomalies in emergency communications. They are glimpses through a veil that normally separates our reality from something beyond. What connects these 8 disparate incidents from across the country? Not the specific details, which vary as widely as the landscapes themselves, but the underlying pattern. The moment when routine procedure encounters the inexplicable. When professional training meets phenomena beyond human understanding. And most tellingly, when the human response shifts from intervention to warning. In each case, the individuals involved, rangers, officers, truckers, operators, all reached a point of no return, a moment when they had to choose between maintaining their role in our familiar reality or crossing into something else. And in each case, their final act was not to call for help or to attempt to control the situation, but to warn others away. The phrase, "do not enter," becomes not just a caution, but a sacred responsibility to protect others from encounters for which they are unprepared. These warnings serve a dual purpose. They protect those who might stumble into phenomena they cannot comprehend, but they also preserve the sanctity of the encounter itself. The entities, forces, or consciousnesses that manifest in our reality seem to value choice and consent above all else. They do not force interaction, but rather offer invitation, and they respect the boundary when it is set. What does this tell us about the nature of these encounters? Perhaps that they are not hostile invasions, but carefully considered interactions between different forms of consciousness. Perhaps that the greatest danger is not the entities themselves, but our limited ability to comprehend and respond appropriately to their presence. And perhaps that the wisest response to the truly unknown is not always to confront and control, but sometimes to observe, respect, and maintain appropriate boundaries. The dispatch recordings we've examined tonight represent more than just unexplained phenomena. They are documentation of the moments when the veil between realities thins, when the carefully constructed boundaries of our consensus reality become permeable. They are evidence that we are not alone, not necessarily in the extraterrestrial sense popularized by media, but in a far more profound sense that consciousness takes many forms and that human consciousness is just one variation on a vast cosmic theme. If you or someone you know has a true story to share, leave it in the comments below. Every documented account adds to our understanding of these liminal spaces between worlds, between realities, between different forms of consciousness. The greatest mystery is not what lies beyond the veil, but why it occasionally parts to reveal itself to us. Is it curiosity? Loneliness? A desire to connect across the boundaries of perception and understanding? Or perhaps simply the natural result of living in a universe far stranger, more complex, and more wondrous than our limited senses can normally perceive. As we go about our daily lives, moving through familiar landscapes and following established routines, it's worth remembering that sometimes, in the quiet moments between breaths, in the spaces between thoughts, the veil thins. And in those moments, we might encounter something that challenges our understanding of reality itself. When that happens, the wisest response may not be to analyze or control, but simply to bear witness with respect and humility. Thank you for watching Sleepless Campfire. Until next time, stay safe out there.